We had a lot of related topics for this September story time, many of which centered around the concept of an awkward dinner party of some kind. So there was awkward introductions, using the special plates and cutlery, overly structured games and get-to-know-you activities that people do, having a progressive dinner party, moving between courses, trying to work out what you can put in something to serve everyone's dietary requirements, intrusive pets at formal events, and then a few more random ones, working on the weekend, butterflies, and washing machine disasters, and I put on their dress codes. So I thought that fitted rather well.
Yeah.
But to start with, I've got a poem which is not to do with any of those things, but it does relate to the story. You'll see once the story starts. It's called Tides. Some people exist like a steady flowing river, passing by always quietly and gently. Some are like the billabong, waxing and waning, sometimes more present than others, but ever trying. Some are like torrential rain, all at once and in your face, and others are like the sea, always there, but sometimes closer than others. Yet all of us wax and wane, grow strong and weak. The tides pull upon us all and connect us all, further away in some moments, yet never gone.
Wow, that's good. I like that a lot.
And this story is called Imaginary Max. I honestly thought Max was an imaginary friend, Chen spluttered, sitting down as though she'd just received the shock of her life. Abbey smacked her hot chocolate mug down on the scrubbed farmhouse table. Why? I've told you the story loads of times, and I'm an adult. I don't regularly imagine people. Ned shrugged. Well, we've never met, Max, and you were so little in the story. I guess we assumed you didn't really remember properly. We've known you ages, Abbey, and Max has always been away, so... Abbey glared. That's what Max does. He goes away and helps on boats and dives and things. He says he's like the tide. Chen rinsed her cup in the sink and frowned. Like the tide is a pretty magical description for someone who's real, she muttered. Well, he is real. But gee, if you two want to persist in not believing in him, I guess maybe I don't want you to meet him after all. Abbey got up from the big wooden table, her chair narrowly avoiding collision with a chicken, which clucked and ran and hid underneath Ned's outstretched legs. Grr, Abbey said to it, pretending to be much scarier than she was. Ned gave the chicken a bit of the lettuce left on his lunch plate, and the chicken shook the lettuce leaf violently and flung some of it across the stone floor. Abbey gave it a look of disgust. Not sure Max needs to meet this house's other inhabitants anyway, she snapped. Chen wandered back to the table, holding a fresh cup of some kind of herbal tea that Abbey could smell from several paces away. Ned switched his crossed legs over. Abbey watched them and felt infuriated by their calm. Well, Ned murmured, seems to me that if Max is real, then it's about time we did meet him. Who knows if we might have to spend a lot of time with him someday. We ought to know him, Chen. He winked. Abbey, who now that she had dramatically stood up was not sure where to stand, folded her arms. Oh, no, Ned. Max and I aren't a couple. He's just important because he's Max. Sure, said Chen, sipping her tea with a small smile. Abbey narrowed her eyes, but Chen continued, You should both come to dinner. Grease, the scruffy, medium-sized dog of ambiguous ancestry, chose this moment to roll on his back, using the floor as a back scratcher, and make a noise like, mmm. You don't do dinner gatherings, Abbey protested. I mean, won't Grease bring socks in and chew them up under the table and fart? Will you even move your staircase underwear display, Ned? Ned had no intention of this, but he just shrugged benignly. As far as he was concerned, if this Max person was important in Abby's life, he would have to get used to the way things normally were at her best friend's place. It would be nice to have a reason to get out the good glasses and plates for once, Chen declared. Abbey looked sideways at Shen's leaning tower of dishes on the sink, thinking the good glasses might not survive the event. But she conceded. After all, she had come here intending to arrange for them all to meet, and she certainly had no intention of gathering them all in her own tiny unit, or going out to some awkward restaurant. Max was always briefly house hunting and never patient enough to actually find a suitable place, so his current accommodation was unlikely to be a good place to hang out. Abby's judgment proved correct when she went to pick Max up after uni on Friday. There were at least 3 other crew members from locally docked ships sharing the place, and various tools and bits of things from the ocean were strewn around the kitchen. Max was carving something from driftwood at the table and getting a fine wood-shaving dust coat over everything. When Abbey was let in by one of the strangers, Max dropped his tools and ducked down to get something, and Abbey instinctively raised her hands to catch the ancient rubber beach ball he hurled across the room. "Your turn, Abs," he said. Abbey inspected the ball. "Max, I think we should give this old thing up soon. The rubber's cracking." Max folded his arms and pouted like a small child. "Abbey, you can't get rid of a gift from the sea." Abbey brushed bits of flaking beach ball off of her outfit. "Whatever. Come on, we have to get back in the car quickly because I have butterflies." "What are you nervous for?" Max inquired, getting up and grabbing a bag from the corner of the room. Abbey laughed. "Not that kind of butterflies. Live butterflies. My conservation lecturer let us do a project on any species, and my group chose orchard swallowtail butterflies. We were observing the life cycle, but we're done now, so someone has to release them. I thought they'd like Chen and Ned's farm." Max nodded, doing some kind of in-group see you later gesture to the other people in the kitchen and following her outside. "I've got seaweed," he returned, as though this was equally exciting. In your bag?" Abbey replied incredulously. "Yeah. We helped on a harvest of edible kelp and got given some to take. I thought it would make a good talking point if I brought some as a contribution to dinner." "I can't really imagine Ned eating seaweed," Abbey mused. "You might be able to convince the rest of us, though." Earlier that day, back at the farm, Ned had suddenly begun to be uncharacteristically nervous about having visitors. "Do you think it's going to feel as though we're pushing them into a sort of double date?" he asked Shen, who was kneading some pizza dough. "Oh, we could always invite a few other people," Shen replied cheerfully. "Text Abbey and ask if that would be more comfortable." 15 minutes later, Shen was somewhat less cheerful, having already fallen over grease and broken one of the special plates. "Did you ask if Pan or Jay or Alana have any special dietary requirements?" she demanded of Ned, who was fighting with his new phone. "I will in a minute. I'm trying to close Messenger so I can see Jay's message on WhatsApp, but Abbey keeps sending regular texts and Pan keeps sending gifs in Messenger so it pops up in front." Ned fumbled his phone, dropped it, and sent a chicken scurrying. He picked the phone up, dropped it again, and the case popped open so that the battery fell out. "Can you calm down, please?" Chen ordered, which naturally only caused Ned to get more agitated. Grease came in with a sock from the staircase and then backed out again. When Ned had reassembled his phone and put the battery back in, he began methodically sorting through messages one service at a time. "Pan wants to know if there's a dress code." "At our house," snorted Shen. "Tell her fancy dress if she wants." Okay, so Jay is allergic to nuts. That's fine. We don't do much with those. He also can't eat pickled things, apparently. Alana, I'm told, eats most things, but is vegetarian. He closed WhatsApp. Well, that seems relatively easy. Next, he opened Abby's latest text. Abby doesn't really know what Max eats, but she says he's very chill, and she's eaten pizza with him before, so that seems okay. Shen put a large waxcloth wrap over the pizza dough and stood the bowl in a patch of warm afternoon sunlight on the windowsill, next to her chain of hearts plant. This gesture calmed her considerably. "Great. And Pan?" Ned opened Messenger. "Oh, Pan can't have cheese, but she says she can bring her vegan cheese stuff for us to add, so that's fine. Oh, but she also can't have yeast. Oh dear, well that one's a bit difficult." Shen looked at her beautiful bowl of rising dough and sighed. "Do we have any sourdough flatbread?" Dietary requirements satisfied, Ned turned to worrying about how to keep everyone talking. "I'm going to look up some icebreaker games," he announced, "just in case." Shen gave him a worried glance, but there was really not much to be done once Ned decided that something needed sorting out, so she let him wander off to troll the internet. That evening, back in Abby's old bomb of a hatchback, Abby and Max were having something of a butterfly problem. Apparently, the Orchard Swallowtails were not thrilled about Max getting into the car with his seaweed and salt-scented backpack, and the moment Abby reached for her handbag and nudged the large basket they were in, there was an explosion of fluttering wings into the small vehicle. Abby, who had already pulled away from the curb, not immediately noticing this development, was promptly blinded by the swarm and panicked. "Open the windows! Open the windows!" she screeched, and Max obliged. The butterflies flowed across the roof and out of Max's window in a great big wave. It must have looked very pretty, but Abby was not pleased. "How am I supposed to take notes and photos to write my bit about butterfly release now?" she exclaimed, her gaze following the butterflies as they dispersed into people's gardens. "I hope they'll be okay here." Max watched them go with a calm smile. "We'll keep an eye out for them," he said. "Good luck," Abby snorted, as the last of the dainty wings blended into flowers and hedges. At Ned and Shen's house, Ned was having some last-minute regrets about leaving his staircase washing line intact. "Maybe I should have put my socks and underwear away," he murmured, looking through the doorway of the living area at the stairs, adorned with all his undergarments. "A bit late now," Shen replied, smirking a bit. "Never mind, no one should be going in there anyway." Ned nodded uncertainly. Just then, there was a loud and vigorous ringing of the big brass bell by the front door. At least, it ought to have been loud and vigorous if the bell weren't clogged up with a spider's web from lack of use. Ned and Shen's close friends and family normally just came in. Instead, it sounded more like, "Dunk! Ah, Redback!" which nonetheless definitely alerted Chen and Ned to the fact that someone was at the door. Ned went over and opened the door, wedging it afterwards with a log of firewood in the hope that everyone else would let themselves in and he wouldn't have to kill a spider. He looked up after doing so to see Pan and a total stranger. Hi, said Pan nervously. This is Itso. He's from my gym. Itso smiled benignly and somewhat confusedly at them, and Ned and Chen looked back at him with much the same expression. Had they at some point inadvertently suggested that Pan should bring a date? Come in, Chen said, with a slightly glazed smile. Pan and Itso came in, right in, and began inspecting what Chen and Ned were making in the kitchen. Would you like to play a board game while we wait for the others to arrive? Ned suggested, hoping to draw Itso away from where he'd taken over stirring Shen's pizza sauce. Can we have some tea and I'll read everyone's tea leaves? Pan proposed. Jay and Alana arrived when Pan was just finishing telling Ned that he needed to watch out for over-planning in the next few weeks. Hey, sang Jay, dancing around the room and bestowing everyone with hugs. Seems like so long since I saw you all. Jay had evidently decided that patterned harem pants were either a good part for a costume or simply very attention-grabbing evening wear. Itso was following his progress around the room with wide eyes. This is Alana, for those who haven't met her, Jay continued. Alana gave a nervous little wave to Chen, Ned, and Itso. Itso stepped back from the stove, said, I am allergic to tomatoes. Began vigorously washing his hands in Chen and Ned's sink. When Abbey and Max eventually entered the kitchen, they found Chen and Itso in a deep consultation about what he could have for pizza sauce, and Ned and Alana cornered by Pan, who was narrating a very detailed account of a dream she'd had, and repeatedly knocking over the bowl of veggie crisps with her gesticulations. Grease and the chickens, needless to say, were delighted by her story and gathered around closely. Hello, said Max, beaming at everyone. I'm Max. Everybody seemed to turn around at once. I thought you were imaginary, exclaimed Pan. Then Itso and Max caught one another's eye, and both went very still and silent. Do you two know each other from somewhere? Asked Pan. Neither replied, but the two men gravitated to opposite sides of the room, as though they were the repelling ends of magnets. I looked up some games for us to play, announced Ned. Chen and Abbey exchanged glances, but they all obediently traipsed over and sat at the table. Right, Ned continued. Here's the first one. I've got a hat here. He pulled a very squashed straw hat with pieces of paper folded in it from under his chair. Chen pulled a face and gestured to him to look closely at it. On the brim of the hat, curled neatly as if it was meant for decoration, was a chicken poo. Perhaps just get a Tupperware box, Ned, Chen advised. Ned scurried off to get a more hygienic container, pulling handfuls of mismatching lids from the cupboard. And Itso and Max sat at opposite ends of the table and started telling stories simultaneously. When Ned had finally transferred all of his folded bits of paper into a plastic box, Max had won the table's attention by virtue of his story being about Abbey, and Itso had gone quiet. I was so convinced that Batman was going to find the bowl, Max was saying. I even imagined that I might get to meet him because of it, like somehow Batman would know it was from me and come to say thanks. And then Mum and I are walking on the beach again one day, and she sees someone she knows. And I, being a kid, am like, oh no. But then this little girl steps out from behind Mum's friend, and she's got my red bowl. And I guess I stopped believing in Batman then, and started believing in the sea, and in Abbey. He gave Abbey a look, darting his eyes across the table. Ned winked at Chen. Abbey clearly found this telling very embarrassing and started digging around in the veggie crisps for a bit of parsnip. Do your friends think she's imaginary? Asked Chen. My friends on the ships definitely do, Max laughed. I mean, I'm pretty sure some of the people they talk about knowing on shore are imaginary, so. Everyone chuckled, except for Itso, who was looking at a sweet potato crisp. Has this been near tomatoes? He asked. Once Shen had assured Itso that no tomatoes had been anywhere near anything except for other people's pizza, Ned finally got to explain his game. On the bits of paper are some very silly topics, Ned announced. Each of us will pull one out at random and try to talk about the topic for as long as possible without saying things like or like or any of those other pausing words. We time everyone, and whoever manages to talk fluently for longest wins. Abbey nodded slowly. Huh. That actually isn't half as awkward as I expected. Who wants to pick first? Asked Ned. I think you should have to, Shen pointed out. Ned passed the Tupperware box to Abbey. Mix them up for me. Abbey obliged, and Ned pulled a slip of paper out. Millipedes. Oh, blast. Okay. Does someone have a timer ready? Pan got out her phone. Ready, set, go. Millipedes are black-coloured bugs with lots of legs. As a kid, my mum said there were 1 million legs, and that's why they're called millipedes, but I never really checked if that's true. They often crawl all over the paths at a certain time of year here and get squashed and smell bad. Kind of like, out, chorused Jay, Pan and Abbey, who had rather taken to this particular game. Excuse me from this game, Itso announced. I just have to check something for work. He pulled a small notebook laptop out of a satchel he'd been lugging around and put it on the table. Pan looked embarrassed. I'll go next, she declared, evidently feeling that this would help. She felt around for a slip of paper and drew one out. Bins. Really, Ned? Okay. Timer on? She took a breath. Bins are containers, usually for rubbish, but sometimes for bulk products. Some people are not very good at putting their rubbish in the right bin, and that annoys me a lot at home. You can find out a lot about someone from what's in their bins, according to detective shows on TV. However, bins also smell bad, so, out, yelled Abbey and Ned. Shen looked as though she was dreading her turn, and Itso had put headphones in. But before anyone else could have a turn, Grease came in, put down a pair of Ned's underpants that he'd procured from the stairs in the other room, and made a sound like "ahem," as though clearing his throat for everyone's attention. Out, Grease! Outside! Yelled Ned, scrambling around the table. But too late. Grease appeared to fold at the hips like a concertina, made a little cough, opened his mouth wide, and produced a pile of sick, larger than his small frame would seem to hold, in the midst of which was one of Ned's socks. Sorry about this, Shen managed weakly, as she poured bicarb soda on the damp patch to remove the odour. Itso had moved himself to the couch beneath Ned's staircase washing line, and Ned had gone outside with Grease to see if he'd swallowed anything else. Shall I check the pizza? Asked Abbey. Shen nodded, and Abbey went over to the oven, leaving just Max and Pan at the table. I really thought you were imaginary, Pan managed after a moment, over the sound of Abbey crashing around with trays and Shen scrubbing at dog sick. Max laughed a bit, and then awkward silence reigned for a moment. So, said Max, swinging on his chair and swishing some wine that had materialized in a glass around. Giraffes. Too tall? Max, shouted Abbey from the oven. That's the 57th time. Ned came back inside and told Grease to stay. Right, he said, as Chen took out the dog vomit bin bag and Abbey sliced the pizza. New game? Ned's new game was far less comfortable as far as Abbey was concerned, and excellent as far as Pan was concerned. It involved staring into the eyes of a randomly selected partner and attempting to say the same word at the same time, as though psychic. Chen and Ned should go first, Abbey declared quickly, knowing she was only putting off the inevitable. Chen and Ned said farm, and then Grease, and then groaned over mismatching on a series of additional attempts. Then Itso actually had a go with Pan, and they managed Jim, and then fell apart. I feel like these pairings are not really random, Itso complained. It would be more interesting if we were paired with those we don't know well. Yeah, but then no one would actually be able to do it, would they? Abbey retorted. Pan gave her a dirty look. Actually, fine. Why don't you and I try it then? Said Abbey to Itso suddenly, seeing an opportunity. Sure, Itso replied, not seeming all that interested, but at least no longer working. Abbey and Itso squared their shoulders toward one another. 3, 2, 1, said Ned. School, said Abbey and Itso together. Whoa! Pan straightened up in her seat. What was that? Come on, it's nothing spooky, Abbey sighed, exasperated. Everyone goes to school round here. It's a safe bet, that's all. But the evening was spoilt. She couldn't stop wondering, horrified. Did she actually know Itso from school and not recognize him? Thump. Ned paused with his piece of pizza halfway to his mouth. Abbey noticed how he used his little finger to support the dripping cheese. What was that? Ned asked ominously. Ned and Chen looked in the direction of the noise, frowning and trying to imagine what could have made it. Shoot! Chen exploded. Was the washing machine on? Everyone put down their pizza and rushed for the laundry, except for Pan, who evidently didn't think helping was necessary and was using a spoon to eat her pizza toppings very precisely. In the laundry, they found the washing machine, which had walked away from the wall so far that the pipes had half popped out and tipped itself over. The floor was a swimming pool, and the machine was making a terrible racket, not having managed to entirely disconnect itself from either water or power. Itso, to the other's surprise, took charge. Switch off the water and power from outside if possible, he said. Get some rubber boots. He soon had the dinner party organised with the machine safely switched off and back upright, and everyone mopping and bailing out water, which he and Max did with a comfortable gusto. When the laundry and surrounding hallways were finally dry, everyone traipsed back into the kitchen to find that Pan had finished her pizza and was playing Farmville on her phone with another friend from elsewhere. It's rude to use your device at the table, commented Itso, who had apparently forgotten the earlier appearance of his laptop, or considered work exempt. They finished their pizza in a surprisingly relaxed manner, given everyone was now wet and it was getting rather late. Nothing like an unexpected feat of teamwork to make everyone feel at home, remarked Max, glancing tentatively at Itso. Yeah, Itso replied, with a little smile. Abbey looked at Max out of the corner of her eye and thought, beach, bowl, tide, mothers, return, and wondered how many words they could have got if they tried. It was by now 11 p.m, and Ned had begun to yawn and take dishes to the kitchen. Grease, who had slipped back inside, was trailing along behind Ned in hope of snacks. We should probably go, Jay, Alana suggested quietly, eyeing Jay with a knowing expression as he twirled a wine glass in his fingers. It's a bit of a drive back to our place. Jay reluctantly stood up and went around hugging everyone and saying thanks. Abbey looked at Max. She could tell that, like her, he wanted to be the last ones there and talk to Chen and Ned by themselves a while, like they'd expected when they made the plans. But Pan and Itso seemed to be glued to Chen and Ned's sofa. Abbey could see Chen wilting after the intense evening that was so rare in this household. She pulled her phone out of her handbag as if to check the time. Oh my God, Max! I totally forgot I have that field trip tomorrow. Max blinked, then caught on. Oh crap, how late is it? We'd better get going so you can get a bit of sleep. He stood up quickly and grabbed everything. Thanks so much for having us, Chen and Ned. I'm sure you're exhausted, what with washing machine disasters, baking, dogs being dogs, and guests being guests. Yeah, Chen smiled. It's been a pretty busy day, so I think we'll probably go to sleep ASAP. It's been lovely, though. She glanced at Pan, who was still on the couch with Itso, eating the last of the veggie crisps noisily and making no moves to get up. Oh, shit! Chen turned to Ned. The tractor! We forgot to pick it up this afternoon. Oh, no. Do you think they'll have parked it out the front for us? Ned rushed into the other room and grabbed some keys. Pan, Itso, thanks so much for coming. We're really sorry, but we've got some farm stuff to attend to before bed, so we might have to unceremoniously kick you out and go look up if that's okay. Pan yawned, stretched, and got up very slowly. Okay, thanks for inviting us. Come on, Itso. They drifted out like smoke from a blown-out candle, following Abbey and Max to the driveway. Waving to Chen and Ned, Abbey and Max got into the car and headed for Abbey's. They were quietly drinking some hot chocolate when a rumbling motor was heard on the hill, and Abbey grinned and opened the door to see the farm tractor pulling up outside. We just wanted to come say goodbye properly, Chen declared. We thought it might be awkward, just the four of us, but I'm just going to ask what everyone's been wondering, Abbey interrupted. Who is Itso? Has anyone ever met him before tonight? Chen and Ned shook their heads, perplexed. I think he might have kind of invited himself, Ned mused. Pan seemed a bit unsure how to introduce him. I was avoiding introducing him to anyone else because I didn't know what to say. I've decided he's imaginary, Max told them. And they chuckled. No, to tell the truth, that was a bit weird because he was once my boss and he fired me. Really? Abbey exclaimed. What for? Max smiled secretively and said, being imaginary on the job, I'd say. Abbey got Chen and Ned hot chocolate too, since she didn't have any dessert, and it was well past midnight when they got back in the tractor and rumbled away. That bit was the best, Max remarked, as the tractor sound slowly faded. Abbey agreed. Impromptu hot chocolate beat carefully planned dinner any day. 1 week later, when Abbey went back up to the farm to help Chen and Ned pick huge bunches of radishes and herbs for the market, Max wasn't with her. Max still in town? Asked Chen, piling some of the crops into a basket. Nah, said Abbey. He's away again now. Chen thought about Max eating pizza at their kitchen table, entirely at home there, despite them throwing one of the most awkward dinners she'd ever experienced. Where to this time, she asked. Abbey shrugged. It's a diving job. I didn't ask where exactly in the ocean he's going. I guess I like it to be a bit imaginary, like Atlantis maybe, but more Max. She paused, as if wondering whether to try to explain something. Max and I grew up and we grew up really different. But I know that when he thinks of me, he's still thinking of the little girl with the red ball, or maybe the teenager who threw it back and forth with him on the beach. We're still playing catch, you see, just very slowly. She thought of the ancient red ball sitting carefully in a bowl on her shelf at home. Not exactly a fashionable piece of decor. Sometimes I think if we really scratched the surface and saw each other as adults, we might not even like each other now. So in a way, Chen, I guess you were all right when you say Max is imaginary. I'm sort of imaginary to him too. He's a selkie, isn't he? Ned piped up, smiling at Abbey over an armful of lavender. Abbey chuckled. Something like that. But selkies someday don't come back, Ned. The tide always does. Chen put down her gardening gloves on the edge of the wheelbarrow, and Grease stole one of them. Well, she said, we like him, imaginary Max. Bring him to visit any time the tide is in. I will, Abbey replied. And then everything went back to normal, except for a flaky red beach ball on Abbey's shelf and an orchard swallowtail butterfly, which at that moment landed on the handle of the rake and sat fanning its wings as if to say, get back to work now, but don't forget to imagine.
Yay! That's great.
So good.
Very
That's wonderful. I like imaginary Max too.
Requests for October.
Wow, October. Well, it's gonna be Halloween month.
Oh, it is.
Need some spooky requests.
We've never had a Halloween story
No.
before.
No,
Yeah.
that could be fun.
We can have some Halloween spooky things.
Yeah, something spooky,
All right.
but like
Mum-
fun spooky,
Yeah. fun spooky.
not really scary spooky.
Mm.
Fun spooky. I can see Andrew going.
One of my friends' birthdays is on Halloween, and
Oh, wow.
a couple of years we had themed birthday parties where it was like Disney villain murder mystery.
Oh, that's cool.
Mhm.
I don't know, obviously your stories are set in the real world, but something like a Disney villain, or when a villain's the hero of their own story, or something like that.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
That could be good fun. I know several people actually who, if asked to describe their like aesthetic, their fashion style, describe themselves as Disney villain. Like, I think that's that's obviously a look.
It's interesting that it's such a clear cut
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. Because you know what it really, you get an idea when they say it, so it obviously works.
It's going to be stereotypical, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. We would like to have workmen in the home.
Okay, yeah.
Workmen in the home.
Because we're through 7 weeks of working with the home and they ain't finished yet.
Oh my goodness.
Really?
It's been really interesting.
Wow.
Just, the hilarious stuff that can happen. And, and the other one that I was keen on, I don't mind if these are scrapped and put off for another time, given the Halloween thing, because I think it's a lovely idea, is conversations overheard in the hairdressers or razors.
Love that.
Now this comes because I had my hair cut the other day and there were 2 sisters, about 13 months apart. They're little girls. Mum had gone in to have like the big heavy eyebrows drawn on. A little baby about, 10 months old. He was beautifully behaved little boy. But so the big thing was controlling these 2 little girls while they had their hair cut, because they both had really majorly long hair and they both wanted a fair bit off. So one of them, the older girl, wanted just a good cut with hair like below her shoulders type thing, and she was not too bad. The other little one wanted her like a bob.
Yeah.
And so the hairdresser's doing this very good adult to child talk and, talking about it, and she's pegging bits up, and doing the underlayer first and all this stuff. Anyway, she's sort of engaged the kid in, and what appeals to you about the bob? And the kid says, I won't have to ever wash it or brush it.
Oh no.
Okay.
Bad news, little kid.
I loved it. It was just so funny. I actually burst out laughing. And so
She should have gone, oh, well, we could just shave it. And that'd be even less maintenance.
I just thought it was so precious, and it really was.
That's
It was the
adorable.
most entertaining time I've ever had a hairdresser. Because I mean, I just can't remember the other stuff, but these kids were so funny.
I
And
won't
you know-
ever have to wash it or brush it.
No,
Okay, so Halloween spooky
Yes,
things.
what did we do? Halloween spooky
Villains
thing.
who are possibly heroes.
Oh, yes.
Workmen in the home overheard at the hairdresser.
Yes.
Anything else?
Overheard in a cellar door. I could write a book.
Things you overheard at the hairdresser.
Hey, cellar door.
Oh, the cellar door.
Oh, the cellar
yeah, I
door.
bet you'd hear lots of
Oh
things.
yeah.
Yep. What about I've been thinking a lot because the last couple of weeks there's been a very interesting revelation in my family because my dad, who's adopted, has discovered new siblings that no one knew existed who were also adopted. It's a whole thing. So I would like to request like family reunion, but something unusual, you know, something unconventional. And it doesn't necessarily have to be biological family.
Yeah.
I heard apparently there's a guy who's made a new job for himself, which is a coffin confessor. So people who know they're dying tell him a secret that they want to be told after they're dead at their funeral.
Oh my
And I'm like,
goodness.
that's one of like family reunion and the Halloween thing.
That's so
that
good.
is good.
Wow.
That's
Is this,
awesome.
can I Google this? That's fascinating.
Yeah, he was on like The Project or one of those kind of not quite
Wow.
news shows type things. But yeah, it's a coffin confessor.
Coffin
Wow.
Confessor. I will look it up. I'm actually taking, oh yeah, I found it. Bill Edgar, the Coffin Confessor. There we go. Wow.
Saying
his
that like
job is to find out, get told this secret, and then
Yep.
keep the
And then
secret
crash the
until
funeral.
like the funeral, and then tell everyone.
until
Yeah.
the funeral. Yeah.
And it says here he's not like they don't know he's going to come in and do it. He crashes the
Oh.
funeral on
Oh.
behalf of the client
Woo.
and tells their secret.
Oh my gosh.
That's so full on. Wow. And it costs $10,000. So they pay him $10,000 to crash
do
their
this, to
funeral
go
and
to
tell a
to
secret.
their funeral and tell a secret.
To their funeral. That's
Yep.
amazing. That's
Wow.
fascinating. They're not.
Ties into my other idea, which is like the soft side of people who people think are dumb.
People be like,
Oh yes!
tough or
Oh,
dark. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love
Because-
it.
For example, when goths are like, oh, everyone thinks we're always so dark, but actually
Yeah.
we enjoy rainy days. We enjoy, you know, these
Yes,
things.
exactly.
Like
yeah,
it,
you know, we're
yeah.
not being miserable. We're having a great time. Yeah. Yes. Oh, I love that. That's very
Yeah.
very good.
Right. So we've got a nice collection
yes.
of topics. Oh, what I was going to do is just check about daylight savings for next time.
Oh, good question.
Because I know that ours is, or one of ours is coming soon.
It will start it. It will
Won't start.
Because it always starts that long weekend, first weekend in October.
Right.
It works. And the thingy's on the 12th or something like that of October. Oh no,
Yeah.
but it's, I've forgotten what date it is. Have you got your calendar up, Sarah?
I'm just doing
Sorry,
the
I've got
computer
mine
job.
as well. So are we talking, would it be October the 10th?
Let's have a look. Yes. it
And
would
it
be
must be, yeah, for the
Yeah.
7th.
10th of
Yeah,
October. So I'm just going to set the converted to 8 in the morning. And yeah, okay, so that would be an hour later for you. When it's 8 in the morning here, it's going to be
You're saying
5:30. Your daylight saving. I
Is
think.
our daylight saving starting then?
Yeah.
Yes.
So are we, so next story time then is October the 10th, and
Yeah.
will it be at the same time for us, or will it be at 5:30?
We'll be at 5:30 because if
Cool.
it was to be at the same time for you, I would have to start at 7.
Yes. No.
Which
Cool.
is a
Don't do that.
little bit too much.
5:30 sounds great.
And
There's
All
nothing
right.
else to do. Yeah, that's good.
Bye-bye, everyone.
See everybody.
Everybody.
you missed you last time.
See you, Sarah.
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you.